People of the internet, Retro Raconteur here, and we have some absolutely massive news to discuss today regarding the future of Avalanche, WB Games, Hogwarts Legacy, and oh so much more. Earlier this week, AT&T announced they were planning to spin off WarnerMedia and merge the company with Discovery in a deal that will have far-reaching impacts across numerous franchises across television, movies, and games. But how does this affect Hogwarts Legacy? And the question I know you all have on your minds, but may be afraid to ask, does this mean the game will be canceled? Look, there's a lot to unpack here, and I think we need to start with an overview of the situation on a broad scale because, guys, I can't stress enough how huge this is in the world of media. This is much, much bigger than just Hogwarts Legacy. And I know it can all be very confusing for a lot of people. There's a lot of business lingo being tossed around, so I'm going to do my best to help simplify things for you as much as I can. Now, I mentioned in the opening, AT&T is essentially selling WarnerMedia to Discovery. They call it a spinoff, but for our purposes here, just think of it as a sale. And it is a massive sale, worth around $43 billion for AT&T. Yes, you heard me right there, $43 billion. Unfortunately for AT&T, they spent $85 billion to acquire Time Warner just 3 short years ago. If the Discovery deal becomes official, which it's not yet, more on that in a second, their plan is to merge with WarnerMedia to form a brand new company. There's not yet a name for this new company, so for our purposes today in this video, let's just call them DW for short, and that will make things easier for our discussion here because it is going to be a completely new company. Discovery, WarnerMedia merged to form what we're calling DW. In fact, the announcement did mention that Discovery's current CEO, David Zaslav, will lead the new company, which means WarnerMedia's CEO, Jason Keller, is probably on the way out. The New York Times has reported that he is currently working on an exit package. Now, Hogwarts Legacy fans will certainly recognize the name Jason Keller because it was just a few short weeks ago that he tweeted out 4 pieces of concept art, and we discussed those here on the channel. So that really just goes to show you how fast things can change. I mean, he was just tweeting out pictures for Hogwarts Legacy, hyping up the game, talking about how excited they were, and now, today, he appears to be on the way out. Now, I mentioned that this was not official yet, and that's because this is all still subject to regulatory approval and also approval from shareholders, so it's not 100% official. Anytime there are big deals like this with major businesses, there are certain procedures these companies have to follow, and then ultimately the government has to okay it. In fact, some of you may remember nearly a decade ago when AT&T announced their plans to buy T-Mobile, but this eventually hit a snag during the regulatory process, and it never ended up happening. All that being said, at the time of this video recording, both AT&T and Discovery have agreed to the deal and are moving forward with this plan. So, barring any snags there, the merger is expected to become official sometime in 2022. On a broad scale, the core focus for this merger appears to be an effort for DW to compete with streaming giants like Netflix and Disney+. As Brian Stelter of CNN put it, the move will, quote, combine 2 treasure troves of content, including the HBO Max and Discovery Plus streaming services, close quote. You see, Discovery owns channels like TLC, the Food Network, HGTV, and plenty more. WarnerMedia, of course, owns their fair share of major IPs as well, such as DC Comics, HBO, CNN, TNT, and of course, Harry Potter. At least a portion of Harry Potter anyway. As for how it seems right now, it would appear that all of those IPs will be under the new umbrella of DW once the deal is made official next year. Okay, hopefully you're still with me so far because now we need to talk about Warner Brothers Interactive Entertainment. Now, this is where WB Games falls under, and that is where they come into play. So as part of the overall WarnerMedia, they'll likely be moving under the direction of the new company, right? Well, that's where things get a little murky. According to IGN's Julia Alexander, she's been told by AT&T that part of WB Games will be sold off. Warner Brothers Interactive Entertainment owns 11 different development studios. Here they are on the screen right now. They also own 2 publishing labels, one of those being Portkey Games. And as we all know, these devs are working on some pretty significant projects at the moment. So what happens to those projects like Hogwarts Legacy, like Gotham Knights, like future Mortal Kombat games? What happens with the studios? Alexander would go on to speculate, quote, there's a good chance that a lot of those will continue, especially if they bleed into Warner Brothers' top IP. Other studios might not work on games with one-to-one ties to WarnerMedia IP. For example, TT Games works mostly on Lego games. WarnerMedia doesn't have close ties with Lego. Universal does. If you're looking to sell some studios, I imagine you start there, close quote. Now, I always keep things honest, keep things real with you guys here. I'm going to give you my true opinion on these things, and I have to say, I'm going to be honest, this all makes me very uneasy. There are still so many unknowns, so many what ifs, so I think our first step is to find out what's happening with Avalanche, and it really seems like there are only two possibilities here. Possibility one is that they'll be part of the sale and under the new DW company. And if that's what ends up happening, the new company could leave things as they are, at least for a while. Or they could decide to completely alter and change things. The other option is that Avalanche could remain under AT&T and be sold off separately. Now, some people seem to think that they could stay under AT&T and just remain exactly as is, but that is not how I read the information that we've gotten so far. I think any of the studios that quote-unquote remain with AT&T would likely be sold off separately because it really doesn't appear like AT&T wants to be involved in the whole media business at all anymore. They took a shot at it, they lost billions of dollars, and decided, nope, this is not for us, so now they're trying to help pay back some of the debt. Okay, all that being said, I think Avalanche does have a few things working in their favor right now. First off, this game has been in development for quite some time and is hopefully nearing the finish line. In fact, it's entirely possible the game ends up releasing before this merger even takes effect. Avalanche is also working on a game under the Harry Potter IP, and the Harry Potter franchise will, of course, be moving to the new company. As Alexander of IGN speculated, she would guess that the games tied to major franchises with ties to WarnerMedia, like Harry Potter, will continue. Now, I don't want to be too pessimistic here, but even if that is the case, what Alexander speculates there, there's still a chance that AT&T and WB could make changes in preparation of the sale, of the move to the new company. A lot of people don't seem to think the game would be outright canceled because of the money that's already been invested, but personally, I don't see that as a strong argument, namely because this is a billion-dollar deal, guys. Remember, $43 billion. Canceling this game and even outright closing studios like Avalanche would honestly be just a drop in the bucket of that massive sum of money that we're talking about here. I think one of the strangest scenarios would be, let's say Avalanche is sold off separately, but the Harry Potter IP, of course, remains with our new company, DW. Now, whatever company Avalanche may be sold to, and then the new DW company, I think they would be able to work something out to at least finish the game. You would expect that when they put this much time and effort into it, and it's hopefully, again, close to the finish line. But here's where the curveball comes in. What about post-launch support? What about any possible DLC down the road? My opinion today, and it is just that, guys, it is an opinion. This is an ever-evolving situation. Things have changed quite rapidly already, so this could all change by the time this video gets out. But my opinion right now, if I had to guess, is that Hogwarts Legacy will end up releasing in 2022. But I do worry about two things. Number one, Avalanche's future, and number two, post-launch support for the game. It certainly seemed like Avalanche was planning something really big here. I mean, they had all these new hires, including a community manager. I think this was going to be a game with support for quite some time. Now, if I had to lay out what I think would be a best case scenario here, I think it would be for Avalanche to actually stay with WBIE, which means they would move to the new DW company. And hopefully that new DW leadership will just say, hey, we like what you guys are doing. Just keep doing what you're working on. They'll get to continue on their current projects, their current goals, and maybe even give some post-launch support as well. Now, this certainly is not going to be the last video that I make on this. Undoubtedly, this is going to come up again and again. So I want to hear from you guys in the comments below. What questions do you all have about this? I still have so many questions as well. In a deal this massive, there are just so many moving parts. These changes won't be able to happen overnight, but you can rest assured changes will be coming, guys. They will be coming to WB, Avalanche, and honestly, even the Harry Potter franchise. As for how much, we'll have to wait and see. Now, if you're new here and you're just checking out the channel for the first time, we have a ton of Hogwarts Legacy content. I'll link you to a playlist here on the right side of your screen now so you can check out all those videos. As always, thank you all so much for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.